Hey there, welcome back. Today's video is going to be a review of 4 new foundations that I've been testing out. I was going to do this in a regular kind of written up blog post, but I figured I had so much to say about them and my fingers would just get tired. So I figured I would do a video review of the 4 foundations that I've been testing out, kind of my thoughts on each and a little review. I'll do swatches are on the blog, so head over there if you want to see swatches of the colors. It's really, I debated doing kind of finished looks with, or finished swatches on my face with the foundations, but what I found was I'm just unable to capture the difference in the formulas on the skin. Like, most of them looked very, very, very similar. And I was just like, it was just too difficult to kind of really show the slight differences that sometimes they would look like when on the skin. So I just settled for some arm swatches for colors, and I will talk to you about the finishes and kind of what I thought about each foundation. I really wasn't sure that I was gonna love them all. I have to be very honest with you. I kind of went into it when I had all of them to try and I was starting to try them, I really kind of didn't have high hopes. I was excited about some, kind of on the fence about others, and some of them were similar to other foundations I've used in the past, which I didn't like or I returned. So I really kind of was on the fence as to what to expect from these foundations. But surprisingly, I really enjoyed all 4 of them. I mean, there definitely were some that stood out more than others, but on the whole, I really enjoyed all 4 of them, and that was actually kind of shocking to me because they really do different things and wear differently. So let's get started, and let me first talk to you about the 4 that I'm reviewing, and then I'll go into the reviews of them. So the first is the Bareminerals Complexion Rescue. This is new, they're all new. The Clinique Beyond Perfecting Foundation and Concealer. There you go. The Dior Nude Air Serum. And then the NARS, the All Day Luminous Weightless Foundation. Okay, so I'm just going to pick them up in like no particular order and give you my thoughts on each and kind of the coverage. Some I've been wearing for longer than others. Some I've just been testing out for a few days, so it's really my initial impressions, but I don't anticipate them really changing. You know, foundations sometimes change on me, i.e. the Giorgio Armani Maestro really changed on me. Like, I loved it at first and then I really didn't like it anymore. But I feel like I got a good enough impression of what they look like on the skin and how well they're gonna wear on me. It is winter though, so I don't know how they're gonna wear in the summer, but I kind of have a slight good idea as to how they would and which ones would be good and not good. So I'm just gonna start with the first one, and this is the Bareminerals Complexion Rescue, and I have it in the shade Opal 01, and it is a kind of pinky based shade. Most of them are pinky based except for the NARS. So this was the one that I was really not expecting to like, and I'll tell you why. Because anytime, though I have oily skin, it can be dehydrated, but anytime I've ever tried like hydrating foundations that kind of have like a nice dewy finish, they can really emphasize my pores, like almost to the point of like looking greasy. And I was really hesitant to try this, and I thought like this is gonna be like a dry skin lover, like a dry skin girl or gal, girl or guy, dream. And I really wasn't sure if it was gonna work great on oily skin. But surprisingly, I really enjoyed this. Now, little tip, I applied it first with my fingers. It's very sheer. And when I applied it with my fingers, it really looked like shiny, like that shiny that oily people don't go for. So then I grabbed my Real Techniques buffing brush and I buffed in a little bit more in heavier area, like just a little bit more in areas that I wanted more coverage, and it looked gorgeous. It really dried down to like a nice natural glowy finish with some coverage, but I did need to set it with powder. So that being said, I really did need to set it with powder to kind of take away that shine and really help to just give a more natural finish. But it lasted a good portion of the day. I only had to touch up once. And I really enjoyed this. Like, it felt amazing on the skin. It felt beautiful on the skin. I'm curious as to how it would wear in the summer, and I'm thinking that this may not go as far in the summer because of the, I get more oily in the summer. But for me, this is working really well in the winter, and I'm really, really enjoying this. All right, next is the NARS All Day Luminous Weightless Foundation. This is another one that I was really on the fence about as to whether I was going to like it. The powder for me was a gorgeous texture, but it was really shiny on me. Like at the end, sorry, I have a hair. It's kind of like going all rogue on my face here. It really was it ended up being shiny on me for a powder. It was very odd. Great for dry skin, but it just wasn't right for me. But I got it in the shade Gobi. So what I really liked about this first was the shade was a great match for me. I liked it because it was a little more yellow. So initially when I put this on, it's gonna have a good amount of coverage. So it went on, had a good amount of coverage. I did notice that it pulled slightly on dry patches that I had. So that's what I had to kind of work through. I just used a buffing brush and kind of buffed it in, or you can use a beauty blender. I did find that I needed my skin to be a little bit more exfoliated and make sure I don't have any dry patches on the skin. That being said, once I got it on, and it gives a good amount of coverage. You will need a little bit. And they said like one pump. I use a little bit more than that. But because once you start really blending it out and buffing it out, you may need like a little bit more. But it gave a gorgeous, flawless finish. It was luminous in the way that I didn't look like very flat or very matte. Like some foundations can be like they're very matte, so it has that kind of flat look, which I don't always mind. But it was kind of a nice satin finish and lasted all day. Really like locked in and did not move. I did get a little shiny around hour 7, which I was surprised about. I thought maybe I'd get a little shinier earlier, but I didn't. And I didn't use any powder in the morning to set it because I was wanting to see if I could go without powder. And I was able to go for about 6-7 hours. It did start to get a little shiny, which didn't bother me too much, but by hour 7, I was definitely like, I need to touch up a little bit with some powder. But it really looked beautiful on the skin. I really loved the color, and I was really surprised. Once again, curious to see how this would last me in the summertime and how it would look on the skin. So I'll definitely update you guys in the summer on a lot of these as to how they're wearing, because right now in the winter, they're wearing pretty well. So next, which is very similar to the NARS in coverage, it's the Clinique Beyond Perfecting Foundation and Concealer. I have it in the shade Alabaster. So first thing was the shade wasn't really a great fit. It's the palest shade that they offered, and it was a little too dark and very pink. So that was a little bit of a little frustration. That being said, I was a little hesitant. I'm like, well, the color's a little off. How am I gonna like the coverage? Well, I loved the coverage. It actually was very similar to the NARS in the amount of coverage that it gave and kind of that satiny finish at the beginning, but it didn't pull on dry patches. So that was a really great point about this that the NARS didn't have. The NARS pulled a little bit on dry patches, so my skin needed to be a little more perfect, let's say, or well hydrated and well exfoliated. This was able to kind of glide over dry patches and not get stuck. It lasted for a very long time, lasted pretty much all day. I did need to touch up once with powder. I didn't use powder in the morning to set it. I needed to use some powder right around same time, like the 6-hour mark. It dries down to a matte finish, not a very flat matte. Like today I'm wearing the Hourglass Immaculate Foundation, whatever, that one that is great for oily skin. And it can, like, it's very flat. Like, it's not very glowing. It's quite matte and almost kind of like a powdery velvety finish. This really gives a nice satiny matte. if that makes any sense. I really enjoyed this a lot. I noticed a lot of their colors tended to skew a little bit more on that like warmer side, so like pink or red based. I was a little frustrated about that. And it did oxidize. So that was my only challenge, is I just have to use a very small amount of this, because if I use too much, it will oxidize and get darker than the rest of me. So that's the only like downside. But if they have your shade in this, I would highly recommend trying this, like giving this a go, because it was a good amount of coverage, didn't pull on any dry patches, dried down to a matte finish, and you could use it as concealer. So if you don't want to use it as a foundation because you don't want that much coverage, use it as a concealer, or use it with your beauty blender and really sheer it out. I was really excited about this, and I'm definitely going to try it again in the summer. Maybe I'll get it a little bit darker. I don't get that much darker, but I think it might even be a good summer shade for me. I can still wear it in the winter. I just need to use a lot less and really sheer it out so that, you know, it helps to kind of blend a little bit better for me with my skin tone. And the final one is the Dior Nude Air Serum Foundation in the shade 010. This is the one out of all of them that I really wasn't expecting to like, which seems weird, because why would I buy it if I wasn't expecting to like it? I had really high hopes because people were like raving about it, but I bought the YSL Fusion ink and I had the Giorgio Armani Maestro, and they were similar type foundations with that little real liquidy, serum-y feel. So I wasn't, you know, I was like, I got my hopes up before and they were crushed. But thankfully this really, you know, kind of surpassed both of those foundations and really lived up to what I'd hoped it would be. It's a really, really beautiful foundation. Once again, the color range is, you know, that shade 010 isn't the best for me. It's a little pink, but I can work with it and it doesn't oxidize, so I'm okay. Most of the Dior foundations don't oxidize too much. The color's a little off for me, but I can work with it. It gives a skin finish. That's all, the only way I can describe it. First of all, it reminds me a lot of my Perricone No Foundation foundation. And because that, but with more coverage. The Perricone No Foundation was amazing because it literally looks like it fuses with your skin, but it gives very little coverage. So I always need to like add a concealer and all that kind of stuff. But this gives you the coverage. It's very sheer though, you can build it up. But it literally looks like it's fusing with your skin, which is absolutely magnificent. So that's the really big selling point to me when I tried this on. I was like, oh my gosh, I kept looking in the mirror and I was like, it just looked like my skin, but better. Whereas some foundations, like, I love that kind of flawless look, but you can see the foundation on your skin, like, for sure. Actually, it was very similar in kind of that disappearing into the skin for kind of that fused with skin look, as also the Bareminerals had a similar look to it when it was on the skin. Not as much as the Dior, this really took it to a whole nother level, but really thought it was absolutely beautiful. It does have an SPF, I think, of 25. I applied it with my fingers at first, and I was like, no, I want to apply it with a brush. I sometimes think it, like, the idea of applying it with my fingers always sounds like it's gonna like warm right into the skin, and it just never works on my skin the way it does in my head. So I always need to go back to using a brush. So I use like my Real Techniques buffing brush, or actually the Bareminerals brush. Oh, I have it here. This one that came, the smoothing face brush. Oh, such a good brush. Cannot say enough good things about this brush. It's so soft. It just helps foundation glide right on. Absolutely beautiful. Can't say enough good things about this brush. So, side note. But anyway, back to the Dior Nude Air. Yeah, I loved it. Really enjoyed it. Probably the most out of all of them. Yes. This would probably be my favorite. It's really challenged on the other three, kind of where I rank them. I really enjoyed the NARS simply for the color. So I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed the Clinique for the coverage that it gave and the finish. And I really enjoyed the Bareminerals for the way it felt on my skin, the finish, which is kind of that fused with skin look, and how fresh and glowing it kind of looked on my skin throughout the day without getting too shiny. Like I said, I needed to touch up with some powder, but it still stayed, I didn't become a complete oil slick, like disaster. So those are my 4 new foundations and the reviews, and I hope they're helpful. I know a lot of you guys have been asking me to put this up and like what are my thoughts. So like I said, some I've been using for longer than others, but I really wanted to get this video up there because I felt that I had enough information to really give an informed opinion on them and what I thought. And I hope that's helpful for some of you guys, and that maybe you pick one of these up and try them out and fall in love with them. So if you have any questions, leave me a comment below. And like I said, I listed all the shades, but I'll also list it in the blog post along with swatches on my arm, so you can just see what the colors look like. The formulations on my arm like all look very similar. So I said it's really hard to show that kind of finish to the foundation. My camera's just not good at capturing it, but you'll be able to see the colors. They're quite different, but like I said, I can wear a kind of range of shades often. So I'll talk to you guys soon, and thanks for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.